So is there a more iconic song in Prince's entire 38-year discography? Well, that's debatable for sure. The two words that seem to follow the man around more than any others are the words purple and rain. Put together, they form the name of the film and the album that dominated the pop culture landscape in 1984-85. To help me navigate this title song's seemingly arcane lyrics is Eloy Lasanta. Eloy is maybe better known in the Prince community from his Prince's Friend YouTube channel, but I'm happy to have him here on my show today. Welcome, Eloy.
Thanks for having me on, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled to have you here. This is your first time as a guest on my podcast, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the listeners if they're not already familiar with who you are and what you do as part of the Prince community. So take it away.
Sure. It's what I do is honestly just share my love of Prince music, and it's kind of interesting the way that I started my channel. I think we're going on almost 4 years. I think I started my channel in May of 2016, very illegally, just posting up things I was not supposed to post up on YouTube. And what it's kind of turned into is this really kind of positive place of like celebrating Prince and having discussions about Prince, not just like, hey, that song's great, but like, why is that song great? And what do the lyrics mean? And, how does that fit within the total construct of Prince's career? But also, where does that fit in the community? And, what that's all led to is the ability for me to have kind of created this, amazing community of amazing people who come onto my YouTube channel, and they seem to enjoy what I do, at least, or they tolerate it, I will say. And but the video itself is really just any video I do as a launching off point. And the biggest thing that I love to do is then to go down into the comments and not people just talking with me, but like everybody's talking with each other, and there's real discussion kind of happening. It's almost it's just weird in that way. It's something that I really, really enjoy. And it started off as kind of a place to mourn Prince, and to kind of everybody get together and kind of come to terms with our emotions, and it's turned into really just a place of celebration, which is I'm definitely like honored and humbled to be able to be the one to kind of lead that community, because that was definitely not like the goal when I started it. Yeah. When I started it, it was just a place for me to come out and say like, I love Prince and this is why. And that seemed to just resonate with more and more people, to the point where we're over 20,000 subs now at this point, and that's a big deal for me to have that much connection with the people who love this man's music the same way that I love his music.
Right, absolutely. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to express my gratitude to you for what you do on your show as well. I discovered your channel, I don't know, about 3 years ago, give or take. Well, I was just kind of searching for anything Prince related on YouTube, anyone that was talking about Prince after he had passed, and just kind of sharing moments, sharing nostalgic moments of listening to his music, or just, the sadness of his passing.
Yeah.
And your channel came across to me as a really genuine expression of grief and admiration, but also an honest way to just deal with the emotions of losing somebody that, whose music has been such a big part of your life. And because I felt the same way. And, you admired him for a number of reasons, as I did as well. And you just came across to me as someone very genuine, but, like a regular guy, not just like an industry insider or somebody who was a former bandmate or knew him personally. So basically somebody that I could relate to, because, I'm like you in that respect. I never actually met him and didn't work with him
right
during his lifetime, but somebody who still, in spite of that, felt a close kinship with, because of his music being a part of almost my entire life.
Exactly. And I mean, and I use the moniker of Prince's friend. And a lot of people are like, well, did you ever meet him? Or, or anything. And like you said, like, no, I never met him. There was a phase, in his career where he stopped using the word fan, he started using the word friend. And that was like a large part of where, I was really, really deep into it. So I've always used the term friend. And you would be surprised at how many people come to the channel saying, oh, you never met him? Like, why are you using the term friend? And I'm just like, because everything has context.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason. But I also use the term friend because, fan is for fanatic, and I do end up with some people who come into my channel, and they're surprised that like everything I say isn't just Prince is the best, Prince is a genius, everything that he ever touched was the best thing in the world and everything. And it's like, well, if I'm going to be Prince's friend here, then I also need to point out when like, hey, something wasn't all that great.
Yeah. Just like a real friend would.
Just like a real friend would, exactly. So, for me, it's all about, I appreciate what you said, that I came off as genuine, because that's basically what I am. I come on and I just kind of ramble on about what I think about Prince, and sometimes people are like, that was really dumb, and I'll be like, yeah, I probably was. But but other times people are like, whoa, I've never thought of it that way. And that's the big thing that I enjoy doing, and why I like being a part of the Prince community is that every so often I will throw out this thing, this idea that, people will be like, whoa, I never thought of that album or that song in that way. And you have now changed my appreciation for that song. And that's what I love to be able to do.
Yeah, and you definitely do that. You highlight aspects of Prince's career that not everybody is celebrating or highlighting. Not because it's not good music, but just because they weren't as familiar with it. It didn't sell 10 million records. It wasn't in the forefront of every popular culture news program, or in films, or on the radio, or on MTV all the time. It was kind of more hidden. You had to search it out. You had to seek it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And the music is still there, and it still holds up. And what you're doing is important because it does shed light on some of Prince's less heralded albums and music, and that needs to happen. That needs to be there.
Yeah.
So I'm personally thankful for that, and I'm sure many others as well. Another thing I'm personally thankful for is, because of your channel and because of what I saw as somebody who was, like I said, a regular guy who was just using his skills, and also using the technology that's available to us, video, sharing internet videos, to do that and share your love of Prince and his music with the community. And that's what I love about this whole thing, is there's a community that's been built. It's always been there, but maybe we felt a little more fractured before Prince passed. But after, April 2016, a lot of us have come together in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise, and it's the silver lining, I guess, if we're looking for one.
Yeah, I think it was last year at Celebration that I think it was Wendy. It was either Wendy or Lisa, and I said it wrong when I did my video after it, and I'm probably about to do it wrong now. I think it's Lisa. I think I'm going to say that. But like basically what she said was like, when Prince passed, like it basically, he gave all of us to each other. But when he was alive, he gave us all music. He gave himself to us. And when he passed, we are now together. We're stronger now because we all have to be in this fight to kind of keep his legacy alive, which I thought was pretty cool. And by Lisa, I mean Lisa Coleman and Wendy Melvoin. Yeah. I guess I probably didn't need to preface that, but I also don't want to make it sound like, I was hanging out with Lisa and Wendy. Like, no, this was on a panel.
First name basis only.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is what you've done kind of was the catalyst to get me started doing what I'm doing here in my podcast, because I kind of felt like I had something to say too, and I wanted to kind of find my own way and what made sense for what my skills were, and it also drew me to people that I wouldn't have been in contact with otherwise. Like if I didn't have this avenue through this podcast, I wouldn't have met so many great people in the same way that I'm meeting them now. And that is part of the community. It's part of what he gave us.
100%.
So we're here to talk about Purple Rain.
Yes.
The song. So this is an enormous song from Prince's discography, from a ubiquity standpoint, pop culture standpoint. Everybody knows Prince. If they don't know him from anything else, they know this song, right? I mean, that's kind of what this song is to a lot of people, is the song, capital T. It was the third song released off of the album, but it never even went to number one on the charts, which is kind of an odd thing to think about, in hindsight, but that doesn't really matter in 2020, that.
I mean, it did get to number 2.
It did get to number 2. It was a big hit, but it never went to number 1, which.
Well, in the U.S., it never got to number 1.
True.
And,
yeah.
and it got number 1 in Belgium and the Netherlands.
Well, those guys knew what they were doing.
Exactly.
Congratulations. But yeah, anyway, so it doesn't matter in 2020 really where it ended up on the charts in 1984, because it has its place today as one of his most iconic songs. So it's kind of a big deal to have an episode dedicated to this and talking about the lyrics that so many people have thought about, or heard, I should say, but maybe never thought about in the way that, we're going to talk about on this episode.
Yeah.
So it's mainly known as, the song that was in the climax of the film. It seems to have like this magical property to it in the film itself. It simultaneously, addresses the kid's faults in the film, like a lot of his personal failings, and how his personal relationships with Apollonia, with his bandmates Wendy and Lisa, with Morris Day, and even, Billy, the club manager, they all seem to just kind of, all of their angst and all of the issues that they've had with the kid over the course of the film just seem to melt away during the performance of this song, which, like I said, it seems to kind of have a magical property to it in the movie. And it really kind of heals himself as well. You kind of get the sense of that healing the kid himself due to a lot of the violence that he saw throughout his life at home, his father's abuse of his mother, and then, of course, his subsequent suicide attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big plot point in the film, the performance of this song. So I think what we'll do on this episode is I kind of always looked at this song from a standpoint of what is its context of the film, the narrative that is being told in the lyrics of this song and how it relates to the film. But you have a unique kind of take on this song, or at least you've done your due diligence in thinking of this song from a different perspective, and that's what I think a lot of people will be interested in hearing. Do you want to just briefly, before getting too into detail, briefly talk about how you came up with those theories, or maybe where you first communicated them on your channel?
Well, sure. I mean, for me, just taking the lyrics just as they are, it's definitely kind of it's a I'm sorry song. So which is why it has such a huge, impact in the movie, is because he has, kind of wronged all these people, and he dedicates it to his dad, who, he feels he also wronged, and who he feels wronged by. And it's a big apology song, but when I decided to actually start kind of delving into the lyrics, I found some quotes, and I found just, different people talking about different parts of the song. And I realized that, I really had never really kind of dove deep into what the lyrics really meant. I kind of just would sing along and, enjoy the music, and I never really overthought it until I was like, hey, I should probably, figure out what this song means. It's one of his biggest songs. Yeah. It's the touchstone for Prince in a lot of ways. If anybody who gets into Prince, it ends up, listening to Purple Rain at some point. There's no way to get around it. Right. So the biggest thing that I found when I was doing my research was Prince's explanation of it himself. Yeah. And that was that, the sky is blue, and if it's raining blood, then it's purple rain. the mixing of the red and the blue. And it really, it hit me hard because I was just like, really? That's what it is? And I never knew it for like the 30 plus years I've been listening to Prince.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is this a thing that I've never known this? Especially since he said it. You know, it's just a quote I've never heard. But, you know, you take that into account, but it also becomes like it should have been obvious if you track like the lyrical content of the songs from 1999, obviously, you know, leading into Purple Rain. Like, it makes sense. Like, yeah, of course, it's all about the end of the world.
The sky was all purple. There were people running everywhere.
Exactly. So why didn't I connect that? Why didn't any of us connect? I mean,
no, exactly.
Probably
yeah, not just
did,
you.
You know, it wasn't just me, but I'm sure there were a lot of others who were just like, whoa.
Well, I think personally, I think it's because a lot of it is because of the film, right? I mean, the film was huge. The album was huge, and this was an enormous moment in the film. And the film has nothing to do with the apocalypse. You know, it's not really going down that path. There's no plot points in the film that goes down those paths. So
Sure.
Most people just look at the song, myself included, and how it fits in with the narrative of the film. Because so many other songs on the album have very distinct moments in the film where they fit in and what they mean with the movie. So like Let's Go Crazy is just like the opening, just to kind of show that the Kid and the Revolution are like this rockin' band taking over First Avenue. Everybody's dancing and having a great time. It doesn't talk anything about, you know, you don't get any sense for what the true lyrics of Let's Go Crazy are, you know.
Right, of course.
Because it's not really what the movie's about. And so then you got love songs like Take Me With You and Kid and Apollonia are riding around on a motorcycle, so that fits. So every single song on the album has its moment in the film and how it fits in. Purple Rain is no exception. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it sounds like an excuse, but that's kind of what it is. It's an excuse why many of us never thought of it in its deeper meaning and deeper context, because we felt like it was handed to us on a platter because of the film. And we're like, okay, well, it must mean this because this is how it meant in the film.
Well, you're not wrong either. I mean, because Prince, he had a lot of, you know, spirituality and religion and stuff in his music. From the very beginning, it was there, but he knew what was required to, you know, sign the next contract and get the next record out. And if you sing about God and Jesus and you know, the Bible and all that stuff, then, you know, you might get a frankincense record, but you're not going to get that platinum record that you want.
Well, that's 10 times platinum. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's a reference to like Christian music. They have gold, frankincense, myrrh. Like those are their colors. It's not gold and platinum and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's clever. I like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense for them, but Prince, he wouldn't get that platinum because it just wouldn't exist. Because when you do something like that, and this is something, you know, it's a human thing, and it's definitely a human thing that has now translated into business. But we like categories. We like to be able to easily describe something, which was not something you could do with Prince's music very well at all, like through his entire, you know, like one album is very different from the next, but even one song on an album is very different from the next track, you know, so it was very hard to categorize him. But if at any point he had gotten too blatant with, you know, his religion and his spirituality early on in his career, he definitely did it later on, but early in his career, had he done it at any time, it would have been like, oh, well, obviously he's a Christian recorder. We now know where to put him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But he defied any of those conventions. And any time that it looked like he was going to get classified in one area, he'd be like, oh, so you think I'm mostly R&B? Well, here's a rock album. You know, it's like, oh, well, now you think I'm rock? Oh, well, here's a funk album. Oh, you think I'm funk? Well, here's a pop album. You know, and that's what I loved about Prince, is that, you know, you never knew what you were going to get next.
Yeah, and it really required listeners to keep up with him in a way that most other artists and musicians don't require. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of people stay in their lane, and if they do deviate from their lane, it's only slightly. if you have to kind of to really follow Prince's career over the nearly 40 years, it really requires you to be open to a lot of different styles of music, right? Like you got to be open to hints of country even in some songs, or psychedelic pop rock that kind of was popular 30 years prior.
Yeah.
But then you also have to kind of dig hip hop. You can't listen to a lot of his 90s stuff, and if you hate hip hop, boy, you're not going to really be a big fan of a lot of his stuff in the 90s.
That's pretty much the reason why a lot of people fell off in the 90s.
Yeah, right? I mean, to stay with it and to really, if you're able to enjoy his entire discography for what it is, you either already have like an inherent love for just music in general and different styles and different genres, or you've learned to like it because of Prince, right? I mean, that's another option. Like, like a gateway. Like, I never really got into, like, if somebody says, I never really got into hip hop, but then I listened to Prince music in the 90s, and that kind of was my gateway. I mean, it wasn't for me personally. I already was into hip hop prior to that, but I really think like a lot of people had to embrace different styles of music. And for Purple Rain, this was obviously his rock record. I think that's been pretty clearly established. I mean, he made a very synth and funky album, synth heavy funk album with 1999. And yeah, there's guitars on that record, of course, but not like there is on this album. And Purple Rain is like the epitome of a power ballad in just about every sense of the word, and a power rock ballad with a huge instrumental portion at the end of the song. So let me ask you this, Eloy.
Sure.
For Purple Rain, that song, obviously through your channel, you've made it very clear, like you got into Prince in the 90s, Graffiti Bridge on, and you had to discover his 80s music, looking backwards.
Right.
So when you got into Purple Rain and when you first started hearing it or listening to it for your own sake, did this song speak to you in a way that maybe that you would imagine spoke to other people, or was it kind of like, it's a good song, but what was your thought about it when you first heard it?
So, I mean, going back and listening to it, and I've always categorized myself as a student of Prince, so I got into Prince in 1990, and then I was like, well, I need more of this. But I wasn't just going to just jump backward and just listen to whatever. I had decided that I went and bought For You, and then I bought Prince, and then I bought, Dirty Mind and In Controversy, and I went in order. And I feel like that was going to give me the best kind of experience to be able to understand this man that like my ears had fallen in love with. And, doing that in the early days of CDs and stuff, there was no internet and whatnot. So you didn't have access to lyrics. So like literally I would just sit down and I would like write out the lyrics. I'd listen to a line. I'd be like, is that what he's saying? And I would write down, and I had to transcribe all of my own lyrics so that I like understood what was happening and where he was growing and where he was going. And I think though, what ended up happening was I had this kind of big expectation for Purple Rain.
Sure.
It was a little bit hyped, obviously, because I was like, I know that that's going to be his big one because that's what everybody says. So, but I'm not going to listen to it yet. I'm going to wait and I'm going to get to it afterwards. And I had already heard it and I had seen the movie and stuff, but like I wasn't going to sit down and take my deep dive like right away. So I was like, I went through all the albums, and 1999 like blew my socks off. So I was like, so if Purple Rain is even better than that, this is going to be amazing. And then I got to Purple Rain, and the album it's pretty darn amazing. I mean, it just is. A lot of people are like, well, you don't really like the 80s, and I'm just like, well, that's more a personal style sort of thing, and more because it gets played a lot, and like I don't want him to only be known for his 80s stuff. But there's no arguing that Purple Rain is an amazing album, so I mean that's just fact. But the interesting thing about kind of the way that the album went, because I did listen to the album before kind of diving, deep into the movie again, because I wanted to experience the songs without that context.
Sure.
So when I went and listened to it, I would say, and I know this was a long way for me to come to the answer. Yes, it actually did have a huge impact on me. It's one of those songs, especially after, and this is different in the movie, which is why I was kind of prefacing it with that. I think it works better as that finale than it did in the movie, which was kind of the pre-finale, and then you just get into the dancey songs.
Yeah.
I thought it actually worked way better on the album as like that final song, because like after that ending and the way it kind of fades away with the strings and everything, like that's a statement already being said. So to say something else after that seems to, I don't know, it seems wrong. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you. I as an album ender, it is flawless in my opinion.
Yeah.
And where it fits in the movie, okay, I get it. It was supposed to be, like I said, like this healing moment, and then to show the audience and show us, that he's now a happy man, right? Because we all wanted to see him happy at the end. How can you show that he's happy after this somber kind of apologetic song? Yeah. By playing a bunch of really dancey fun tracks to end the film, to leave everybody with a big smile on their face.
Oh yeah, and it was a great way to end the film.
Yeah.
But I think it just works better in a different order. And that's just about sequencing.
Yep.
Like I actually did I did a video about like sequencing, and I talk about sequencing all the time. Because what Prince is trying to do on a lot of his albums is he is telling a story, and usually that story is you fall in love, bad stuff happens, but you eventually find that love again, and through that love you find God. Like that is like if you listen to, I would say 75% of Prince albums, that's the story that's being told. Because I always look at everything through stories because I have a background of like creative writing, and that's what I do. So I always look at everything in terms of stories. So when, like, for instance, you take one song, and when I'm kind of diagnosing an album, I'm like, so why is this track 7? Why is it coming after 6 and before 8? Why isn't it track 5? Like, there has to be a reason. And sometimes it's for like listening, sometimes it's like, oh, well, it's there to break up a couple of like really fast songs. There's a slow song in the middle. I get that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, if you listen to the subject matter of the song, he is taking you on a journey. There is a thing there. And that's why, like, for me, Purple Rain, it is, like you said, like, it's kind of the perfect ending song after everything. And actually on the album it works even better in that sequencing, because you have I Would Die For You, then Baby I'm a Star, then Purple Rain. Because I Would Die For You is, what did I say before? It's everybody kind of accepting faith and Jesus and religion. Then Baby I'm a Star is everybody being completely happy in that now new acknowledgement of their spirituality and the presence of God. And then the last song, being Purple Rain, is, all right, Armageddon is here, and I'm sorry for anything that could have happened in the past, and really I want to move forward into the Purple Rain and into eternity and heaven and whatnot with a clear conscience.
Right. Well, I think that is a perfect transition moment to start digging into the lyrics. And I will also say the song doesn't have a ton of lyrics, really.
No, it really doesn't.
It's got a few verses, and the chorus is very simple. A few verses, a simple chorus, and then some outro style acknowledgments of the crowd and just trying to get people involved, because the song, as everybody kind of knows at this point, portions of it, a large portion of it, was recorded live, and that's the version that you get on the album. Of course, there were some things that added to the mix before it was released and before it was added to the record, like the strings, like you'd mentioned before. The strings at the end were not part of the original live recording.
Correct.
But they add a lot to the song. It adds a lot of beauty, I think, to the song towards the end. And I will say, just because the ending is so, it's lengthy, but it's also so beautiful, and how it just transpires and goes from like, more exciting, and then it kind of slows down, and then it brings in some new musical elements into it to kind of almost like a lullaby in some ways. And when I was a kid listening to this album and we got to Purple Rain, I will admit, as a 9 and 10-year-old child, the song was a little dull for me. I mean, I liked the more upbeat songs, and that was just what I was gravitating towards. And Purple Rain was a little bit dull. I knew it was a good song, and I enjoyed listening to it. But as the song progressed and got, to the 5, 6, 7 minute mark, I just couldn't believe how long it was. I'd never really experienced a song of that length up until that point. I was used to very short bursts of pop music that you would hear on the radio, and this song broke that mold completely. And
I could see that, though. I could see that because, I could see, like, you listening to the album and Baby I'm a Star ends, and you're just like, that was a great ending of an album. Like, that's wonderful. Like, like I could even see the album ending there, because even Baby I'm a Star is a pretty good ender. When I did my review of, what was it, Michael Jackson's Thriller, when I did my review of that, I had only ever heard the last song on that album like 1 or 2 times before, because the song before the last song was PYT, Pretty Young Thing, and I'm just like, well, I listened to Pretty Young Thing constantly, but I would stop it there, and then I wouldn't listen to it anymore. So it's like, I get that, because sometimes you just want to end on that nice, upbeat, happy, feeling, especially when you're young. When you get older, you're able to appreciate kind of those more somber moments and those more emotional songs.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And that it took me a little bit, but I warmed up to it not too long afterwards, and then I realized, 8-minute, 44-second songs aren't that unusual. Once I started exploring music outside of pop, I was listening to things, and then I saw like, okay, well, that's not that unusual. It just seemed unusual to me at the time, but there's a lot of songs on albums that exceed that length, and then Prince has a ton of them. I was listening to a Prince album, I forget which one, it might have been like Emancipation or something like that, and the track listing kept coming up, and my kids were in the back seat, and they could see the length of the song. Like, gosh, does Prince ever record a song that is short? Does he have any short songs in his discography? I'm like, he does, but he also has a very, I don't know if it's disproportionate, but it has a very large percentage of songs that exceed that 5-6 minute mark, I feel.
What I like to say is, I mean, Prince would record a song, and I think, would record it until it was done. And sometimes it would be super long, and sometimes it would be super short. But if you got a long version, it's because he felt he could not cut it. Yeah. Like, he couldn't edit it. Because there are some songs, like on the 1999 Deluxe that we just got, there's a longer extended version of Delirious. And I'm like, I listened to it, and I'm like, well, it's basically Delirious, but longer, and I understand why he cut it, because it didn't make it better that it was longer. It actually made it better when he edited it down. So if he's got a long song on there, it's because that's the best form of it.
All right, so let's get into the lyrics. Move on here. So the first verse of the song, I think everybody kind of can sing along to this song, but I'll repeat the lyrics for those who can't. I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. I only wanted to one time see you laughing. I only wanted to see you laughing in the purple rain. That's the first verse.
Yep.
So what I get from this, once again, is kind of thinking it from how it fits in with the movie, is really, like we already kind of talked about, that apology. It's a public apology in song form as it fits in with the film. And you feel like he's not just talking to Apollonia, not just talking to Wendy and Lisa, not just talking to his parents, to everybody, anybody who he potentially could have in his mind harmed or done wrong in whatever way, just because of his like personality flaws. Never meant to cause you any sorrow or pain, but really I think a lot of people look at it as more like a directed towards Apollonia, since that's the main, love interest of the film, and that's kind of what we're trying to resolve throughout. Like, it's the A plot for the most part in this film. He's got like B and C plots going on in the background, but this seems to be, to me, always been the A plot, was his relationship with Apollonia. And he, they fight a lot in the film, and he smacks her. He doesn't treat her right in many ways, and he feels like she wronged him, and so he has issues with that. And so, I get the sense that this is just, like I said, it's apologetic tone with lots of regret. What else do you get from this first verse?
Well, and so if we go from the other direction, then it is, the part about the purple rain, like, I wanted to see you laughing in the purple rain. The purple rain's here, like, it's there. Like, there's not like the purple rain is coming or anything like that. So the end of the world is currently happening. Mm-hmm. And, basically what he's doing is he's calling out to that person, be it, a lover, a family member, anybody who he's wronged, and he's saying his apologies before there's no more chance to do so.
Yeah, I think the way that I looked at it always growing up, and just even not even that long ago, was that the purple rain was just like a metaphor for, and I wasn't thinking end of the world, but just more like a metaphor for like a cleansing, or because Prince has talked about bathing. He's had so much concepts around taking baths and water, and you have the iconic opening of the When Doves Cry video of him climbing out of a bathtub. You've got the opening to Computer Blue, where is the water warm enough, and so I think all of those culminated in my thoughts about this song for so many years, of it just kind of falling in line with that.
Well, and there's a lot of people who took these lyrics to be like somewhat romantic. Like, I've heard that, because they're like, well, he's talking about bathing, and I'm just like, but no, bathing, if there's rain coming down, it just means that you're soaked. Like, that's what he said. Like, he's just using a different word for it. He could have said covered in the purple rain or soaked by the purple rain, but bathing, he likes to use the word bathing. It's a thing. So it's not actually about taking a bath, because if you were to take it in that literal sense of, bathing in the purple rain is him taking a bath, then if you go to the chorus the second time, which I know we're going to get to, he says underneath the purple rain. So if you were to take it literally, then maybe you are in a bath, but in the second chorus, you're underneath the purple rain, which would mean that, like, you're drowning, which would also mean the end. Yeah. So you could take it both ways. You could take it literally or metaphorically. It means the same thing, really, in the end.
Yeah, and he doesn't. For those of us who looked at it that way, the first chorus where he says "purple rain" and he repeats that a total of 6 times, "I only want to see you bathing in the purple rain." That kind of gave us the notion that we were on the right path with that thought process. The way he words that, he just falls in line with a lot of like the romantic aspects of somebody giving another person a bath, somebody that they care about, wanting to see you bathing, and maybe implies that. And honestly, as somebody who was very young and knew kind of what Prince was about, or kind of had a sense for what I thought Prince was about, meaning like very sexual, and had, I wouldn't say necessarily always explicit lyrics, but definitely had sexuality as a forefront in a lot of what his lyrics were speaking about. I took it that way as well. Like, well, how do you take a bath? You take a bath nude, right? So it's almost like foreplay in some ways in my mind. And that's the way I looked at it in many respects, is kind of like a foreplay towards somebody that he was kind of regretting harming. I only wanted to see you bathing in the purple rain, meaning to me, if I wouldn't have basically fucked this up, I could have seen you bathing in the purple rain, and we could have had this really romantic moment. Yeah. But I messed that up.
Well, and there's a couple of different ways that you can take that, right? Because the line of "I only wanted to see you bathing in the purple rain," like that's the tricky part, right? So I only wanted to see you, and again, it's kind of all connected with lyrics that come up later on,
Yeah.
because he talks about wanting to guide her, guiding people. So like in this case, like Purple Rain is the end of the world, but it also represents God. So at the end of the world, I wanted to make sure that you were with me in God in Purple Rain. I
Yeah.
wanted you to bathe in the spirituality and the love of God. So, and the fact that it's I only wanted to see you do that means, like, he was trying his hardest to do it, and he messed it up, like you said. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get you to come with me, but you're not doing that. Like, that's the thing, right? It's like this song is not necessarily even sung to the person. It is a song about regret. It is kind of a song about him saying, "I really wish that she was here, but she's not."
Yeah. I mean, it's regret, but it's regret for a different reason,
Yeah,
is what I kind of get from
like
your interpretation, or the aspect angle that you're coming at with this song.
yeah,
And I like that. I mean, it multiple meanings of lyrics are always interesting. It always sparks interesting conversations. And this song, I'm so glad that there's other aspects or other angles to look at these lyrics, because it is confusing. If you're thinking of it just in the context of the film, some things don't make sense. And let's let's get on to verse 2, and I'll kind of explain that a little more.
let's do that.
All right, verse 2 is, I never wanted to be your weekend lover. I only wanted to be some kind of friend. Baby, I can never steal you from another. It's such a shame our friendship had to end. So in the second verse, what always kind of confused me when I was thinking of this only as kind of explain how the song was going to fit in with the film is that last line. It's such a shame our friendship had to end.
Yeah,
Because in the movie they reconcile, like I said, this magical song allowed Apollonia to understand him and understand his apology and accept who he was and how he was trying to change. But you get almost like the sense from that line that this song is like a kiss off, not necessarily like a kiss off like F you kiss off, but just like this is over, and it's unfortunate that it's over, but our friendship had to end.
yeah,
And there's no kind of turning back from that. I only wanted to be some kind of friend. I never even wanted to be your weekend lover. To me, always meant like, okay, I wanted it to be more than just a fling, more than just a good time. And steal you from another, you can make that fit with the whole Morris Day triangle, love triangle.
yeah, totally.
But that last line, our shame, our friendship had to end, was what always kind of tripped me up a bit. So, Len, if you're looking at the second verse from the angle you're taking, what are kind of like your points that you wanted to bring up with this?
Well, I've you can take it from two different points of view. You can have it as kind of a continuation of, the first verse of, I didn't want to hurt you, and you seem to have made your choice that you are not going to come along with me, but I'm going to be over here with God. So it's like, that's cool if you don't want to be with God. I'm going to be over here. Such a shame. Sorry. See you later. I'm going to go be in the purple rain.
Yep.
But another interpretation that I've heard is it's kind of a similar thing to I Would Die for You, and that this second verse is actually Prince kind of speaking in the voice of Jesus. And in such a way of like, I never wanted to be your weekend lover. How like people sometimes just go to church and they only think about God when they go to church on the weekends.
Yeah.
This is not my theory. I've heard this one kind of floating around, but it makes sense. It makes sense within the context. So if you think about it in that, as the second verse being from Jesus himself, then I didn't want to be your weekend lover. I wanted to be some kind of friend, which means like I wanted to be with you all the time. Yeah. But I can't steal you from another. And you can say another could be just life, responsibility, anything that would keep you from, keeping your religion kind of being front and center in your life. And of course, if it's the end, then yeah, I mean, it's if in the end you do not make the choice to accept Jesus into your life, well then, under the rules of the Bible, if I recall, you go to purgatory. And I don't even think you don't technically go to hell unless you've done something terrible. If you've necessarily lived a normal life, a normal happy life, but you just didn't accept Jesus, then you are in purgatory, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, and that makes sense. It's a shame our friendship had to end. It's more just saying there's no other opportunities now. Like, you made your choice. The end of the world's here. You're not going to get another chance. So this is goodbye.
Yeah.
That choice has been made. I will not see you again. And
exactly.
there's some sadness there, and that's kind of like, for me, I always got a bit of sadness from this song. I didn't always know why, but the music helps. It has some sadness with the
strings. Oh yeah, definitely.
The way it's sung, the performance of it is many ways sad.
But even if you kind of compare it to the movie, like this song, there's scenes of like his dad in the hospital. Yeah. It's just like stuff like that. Like, oh, like this song could be a sorry song to his dad who, obviously died. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Which we learned in Graffiti Bridge. At the end of Purple Rain, they kind of made it look like, oh, well, they're all in a hospital together. He's probably going to make it. And then you find out at the beginning of Graffiti Bridge, which is, kind of the de facto sequel to Purple Rain, kind of, sort of. No, his dad died. It's like, oh, crap. It's like, oh, wait a minute. That changes everything.
Yeah, I think most people assume that he's going to make it if they only watch Purple Rain in the vacuum and they don't follow it up with Graffiti Bridge. Mm-hmm. Those tricky movie producers made us all think that his dad made it. But the second verse is the same as the first, except for that last line. Instead of bathing, it says, I only want to see you underneath the purple rain, which you kind of already alluded to that and explained what that kind of means in the context of what you're talking about. So
yeah, and honestly, I think it's just, if you're just taking it from a songwriting standpoint, it's just another way to say bathing. Yeah. It's just another way to say, like, I want you covered in the purple rain.
Yeah,
like,
without being redundant. Yeah,
without being redundant, because a lot of choruses can do that. And he's already said Purple Rain now 12 times. So
exactly. He was pretty good at flipping words around in his choruses to prevent them from being exactly the same, identical from chorus to chorus to chorus. Just doing something small to make them distinct, and that's always appreciated.
Definitely, I always appreciated that.
Yeah. So the third verse, then, he's singing a little more energetically. I don't know, with more feeling, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to best express that, but the way he sings, I mean, how do you describe the way he sings the third verse as opposed to the first two?
I mean, he's essentially doing his signature kind of screams, but what I would say it's more pleading.
Yeah, that's a good word. Honey, I know, times are changing. It's time we all reach out for something new. That means you too. And I can't ever say that line without pointing at something.
You have to point at something. Yeah.
I just automatically do it. You say you want a leader, but you can't seem to make up your mind. I think you better close it and let me guide you to the purple rain. Mm-hmm. So the third verse meant nothing to me in terms of the movie. Like, it was its own thing from day one. The moment I first started listening to the song and actually paying attention to the lyrics, I'm like, I have no idea how this fits in with the movie anymore. Because it doesn't, right? I mean,
because it doesn't, yes.
So this is where really, like, I mean, you already explained how the first two verses can be looked at from the spiritual angle and the end of the world angle. Mm-hmm. But now it's a bit more clear, if you're looking at it from that side of things, what this is all talking about.
Yeah. And to state up front again, like, when I was a kid and I would be listening to this, I didn't give it a second thought. I just sang the words because it was a great song. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I really did not even bother trying to know what I was singing.
Yeah. And so you say you want a leader. I mean, do you take that to be God?
Well,
Jesus?
I think what that is because this is, it's two pieces, but it's kind of all together, because you have the I know times are changing. It's time we all reach out for something new. That means you too. So what that means is there are so many people out there who are trying to find either a replacement for God or trying to check out other religions, trying to find the best spirituality that, kind of speaks to them. And then it gets to the second part. You say you want a leader, but you can't seem to make up your mind. And that's where, a lot of people are kind of questioning. There's a lot of people who are questioning spirituality as opposed to just accepting it. And that's the part. It's just like you can't seem to make up your mind, so just close it. Which is, I've never necessarily liked that line because, in the way that I've always interpreted Prince's music is like you have to have an open mind in order to appreciate it, really. Like literally, he's saying like, but no, close your mind, stop thinking of those other things. You just need to just let me take you where you need to be, which I guess you could say that it's something. So if you take it from the spiritual aspect, then yeah, it's basically probably from Jesus's point of view again, or from Prince's point of view of trying to lead you to Purple Rain, which is God and Jesus, trying to lead you there.
Yeah.
And he's like, shut up. All of my songs are about this. You just don't realize it. I'm literally trying to tell you this is what you need to do to get to God. And, so stop trying to, just shut up. Stop trying to figure it out. I'm telling you this exactly. So just do it. And, but if you can also take that from, again, like it's like from the Jesus, if Jesus is speaking, then he's like, you're looking at everybody but me. So why don't you just let me take you, while the world is ending.
Yeah. By the way, the world's ending. So
by the way, the world's ending. Yes.
You can't be so indecisive anymore.
Yes.
You can't seem to make up your mind. You really just need to stop it. Like you said, just shut up because you don't have a lot of time here. Let me just guide you to the Purple Rain because it's already falling all around us. And instead of like I try to get you there on your own. You're not listening to me, or you just too confused, too conflicted, whatever. So let me just guide you there because you need to get there. If you're gonna get there, you need to get there now, not tomorrow, not in a week. So yeah, it's definitely interesting because like I said, this verse really doesn't fit in with the film anymore. So it has its own thing. And coming up with what that thing is the fun part, really. I mean, that's
the interesting. If you look at it within the standpoint of the movie, I think this last part, and this is work with me here. This part was to Billy, and it was actually why after this part was where Billy started kind of getting into it, right?
Yeah.
If you take it as the kid singing to Billy, then like, hey, I know times are changing. You're reaching out for something new, like a girl group, right? I know that you're trying to make it different and trying to change things, but if you shut up and just let me play my damn music, then we won't have a problem here.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was Billy's the one that chastised them about nobody understands your music but yourself, or whatever the exact lines were. And it's like, well, that's not so true, Billy. Just because you have a closed mind about the kid and his music doesn't mean everybody else is. Everybody in the movie is looking up at the kid enraptured by, him standing there, and he's got that awkward silence at the very beginning of the scene. Doesn't know where to begin. He barely whispers into the mic, "This is for my father," or whatever. And but everybody's really into it, and to say like nobody's into your music but yourself, he just proved him wrong with the performance of this song. And so if you look at it that way, which I like, I dig that. If you look at it that way, it's almost like, see, I told you. Exactly.
Which is again like that's like a third or a fourth way to interpret these lyrics, but like, because if we take it and we say like. We could say the first verse was to his dad, and the second verse was to Apollonia, and the third verse was to Billy. Those three being like his main people that he needed to apologize to for the way that he had acted. None of the verses are for Morris. Like, Morris was a jackass in the movie, and he did not deserve an apology.
Yeah, and he kisses Wendy on the cheek in the performance, so that's his apology right there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't get an actual apology in the lyrics, Wendy. I'm just going to give you a kiss on the cheek, and you can grimace at it all you want, but that's what you get.
That's what you get. That's it. And with the after that chorus, then he's talking about Purple Rain again, but this is where he adds some additional lyrics, like ad libs. But lines like, "If you know what I'm singing about, come on, raise your hand. I only want to see you in the purple rain." That always gave me more of like a feeling of trying to get the crowd on his side. Or, I mean, like, if you're thinking of it from a religious standpoint, I look at him more like an evangelist or somebody along those lines who's really trying to gather the troops, so to speak, and get them involved, get them to listen, but also actively participate in the sermon,
Exactly.
And think of it that way. And it really fits in from that standpoint, because otherwise it seems like a very personal song that you wouldn't necessarily ask for crowd participation in, unless you're looking at it from a completely different angle, like what we're doing here.
Right. Well, and that's kind of the thing about it, right? Is whenever he would say, "If you know what I'm singing about, raise your hand," everybody just raises their hand. Like, that's what you do, like, at a concert or stuff like that. If you don't really, it's kind of like the "Are you ready to rock?" It's just like, well, it doesn't really matter if you're really ready to rock. Like, they're going to go ahead and start now. It's like, that's basically just kind of a cue to you as the audience to respond in a certain way. So, so like I said, like, for many, many years of my life, I still raised my hand. I really did not know what he was singing about, but I still, like, I had my interpretation of it in my brain, but I don't even think it was near the truth. But guess what? I still raised my hand and still swayed along and still sung along. So.
Yeah, because that's what you do.
Because that's what you do.
That's what you do in those moments. I mean, this is the song where Prince basically plays the Purple Pied Piper in many respects, and he wants us to follow him into the purple rain. And if you're not really sure what that is, just follow along, and you'll figure it out eventually.
I love the idea of the Purple Pied Piper. Like, the alliteration just works really well for me. Something needs to be called the Purple Pied Piper now. It just needs to.
That's awesome. Well, that's really the end of the lyrics, because then that's like less than 4 minutes into the song and we're done with lyrics. The rest of the song is, the very iconic ending, the guitar solo. I mean, the guitar solo at the end is what most people remember, but then that bleeds into the more somber and kind of slower aspects of it, where it becomes more of I think I mentioned it as like almost like a lullaby in many respects. Yeah. The orchestra chimes in, and that turns it into something else. But from a lyrical standpoint, that's it. So I guess that's where we ended here. Do you have any final thoughts on the song itself, or do you feel like we covered everything you wanted to talk about in terms of the lyrics?
I mean, I think we hit it all. I mean, Purple Rain is it's just one of those songs that's synonymous with Prince. And even if you don't know the song, it's like, the phrase Purple Rain. There's a bunch of books called Purple Rain, spelled with a different rain of, like, the Prince, so it becomes that sort of thing. It's just becomes synonymous with him. And so it's always fun to, that's why this was the very first, because I started doing, some videos where I'm kind of exploring the lyrics of songs and stuff. I'm just trying to be like you, Jason. I'm just trying to be good lyric listener and breaking stuff down like you do so well over here. But there was a reason why Purple Rain was the first one I wanted to do. I think it's because it's such an iconic song that really almost nobody really understands what the lyrics are. And honestly, I think we dove deeper here in an hour-long podcast, obviously, than I did in my 10-minute video. Which is good. It actually, and I said some stuff over there that I don't probably didn't say over here, but I actually really, really enjoyed this. I just want to say that. I listen to you all the time. Being a guest on here is completely different, though. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful that you agreed to do it because I really felt like you had a unique perspective on the song, and I wanted you to explore that with me a bit more because this is a song that is so near and dear to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And so to open other people's minds up to an alternate meaning outside of maybe what they always thought of or maybe never thought of at all, which we both agree is often something that happens with lyrics. You just sing along, you don't think about it.
Yeah.
You enjoy it for what it is and put no further thought into it, which is not wrong. It's just the point of this is to shed to light some alternate meanings, some theories, because that's ultimately what we're mostly doing. Although in this case, we do have a Prince quote about the interpretation of the song. So we can at least go back to that and say at one point Prince said this about this song.
Yeah, and I've heard people go like, "Oh, that was just Prince like covering his tracks, and it didn't actually have anything to do with that." And I'm like, I don't know. It sounds plausible, you know.
Well, so what? I mean, if we follow that path, even if that was true, how would we ever prove that, right?
Exactly.
It came out of his mouth, and all we can do is really take it for at face value and what he delivered to us as a meaning. It's not like he had an alternate meaning and then 20 years later said, forget that, this is what it means now. We only have the one quote that I'm aware of. So
yeah,
it is what that is. But no, this has been excellent. I'm very thankful that you joined me on the show. Where can people check you out, Eloy?
I mean, the best place to check me out is on YouTube at my Princess Friend channel, just youtube.com/princessfriend. Pretty easy to find me. I don't hide. Trust me. I'm also on Twitter at Princess Friend YT, Instagram at Princess Friend YT. I'm on Facebook. I'm pretty much everywhere. Type in Princess Friend into Google. You'll definitely find me. And, we have a lot of fun over on my channel. We do song comparisons. We do discussions. I ask questions that nobody wants to answer, which is fun, or people, hate that I even bring up questions. That's actually what happened this week, which is kind of funny in my opinion. But yeah, so I'm big on dissecting things, overthinking things.
Me too.
That's why it's perfect that I'm here, and that you've actually been on my channel before. You were in my review for Emancipation. So anybody who wants to see Jason do a stellar job as an actor, go check out my review for the first disc of Emancipation, because he's on that video.
I can't believe you said that without cracking up. Wow, thanks. No, this has been great.
It was a small role. I mean,
very small. Very small. There's no small roles, only small actors.
I've heard that too. I don't know. In this case, I think I literally, you had like one line. So
well, that was by choice. All right. So yeah. Anyway, thank you again. And I've already praised your channel enough. I'll praise it again. Check out Prince's Friend on YouTube. It's a great channel. I check it out every time he puts out a new video. Always right there watching it. Maybe not on first minute, but I always check them out at some point. So I encourage everyone else to do the same if you haven't already.
And thank you so much for having me on, Jason. This was a lot of fun.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, so this has been the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. You can find me on any social media platform, basically, that's out there at Press Rewind 75. And I wanted to thank everybody for listening. And until next time, goodbye.